All right, welcome to the conversation. Really interesting guest for you guys. Katharine Hayhoe is not only chief scientist for the Nature Conservancy, she's the author of Saving Us. She's also a professor at Texas Tech, and the host of PBS's digital series Global Weirding. But she's also climate ambassador for the World Evangelical Alliance. Interesting. Katharine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, great. So first, let's start there. I'm sure you get asked about this all the time. Evangelicals, I would assume that a high percentage of them are not interested in climate change or fixing it. Am I wrong about that?
You are right in the United States, where many people get their statement of faith primarily from their politics and only secondarily from the Bible. There is a lot of climate denial among white evangelical Protestants and among white Catholics. But if you look outside the United States, there, many people of faith, Christian faith and other faiths, are in fact leading the way on climate change. And just last week, the Pope, the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church, and the Archbishop of Canterbury released a joint statement on the urgency of climate action.
Yeah, so unfortunately, climate change, like almost everything else in America, has become not just politicized, everything's politicized, but become part of the culture wars. And so it makes it very difficult to convince conservatives, hey, maybe we should keep the planet. So how do you go about doing that? Because obviously you're evangelical, you're part of the alliance, you talk to folks like this all the time. Is there anything that gets through to them?
Yes, but you're right. Climate change is not only politically polarized, it's been at the very top of the most polarized issues in the country since the Obama administration. So in many ways, if we can connect on climate change, what else could we connect on if we can connect on such a contentious issue? And here's the secret. If we begin conversations from the heart rather than the head, if we begin with something we agree on rather than something we disagree on, if we can figure out what really makes that person tick, what's at the top of their priority list, connect the dots to how climate change is affecting it, and always talk about positive, constructive solutions that they could get on board with. That's how a lot of the resistance can evaporate. And sometimes, you know what, we don't even have to mention the words climate and change.
Okay, well, our time just ran out. The planet's gonna explode. I heard it there on the phone. Okay, no.
That was my timer for the planet exploding. You just heard it.
Yeah, well, there it is. I mean, if that doesn't motivate people to action, I don't know what will. Okay, no, seriously. Katharine, I hear you, and okay, you know what? I'm intrigued. So tell me, I think it's gonna break down because when you go to vote, they're gonna use the word climate change and everybody's gonna run screaming from the building, but it's okay. I wanna be optimistic. Give me an example. How would you do it? What do you mean from the heart? What do you mean connect to them on a thing that they care about?
Well, in terms of voting, what you need the Republican politicians to stand up, put on the big boy pants and say, yes, a thermometer doesn't give us a different answer depending on how we vote. Climate is changing, it's here and now, and you know what? I'm gonna propose free market solutions, I'm gonna propose right-wing solutions, I'm gonna propose solutions that are consistent with my values. That's what we need Republican politicians to do. Because a hurricane does not ask who you voted for before it floods your home.
Katharine.
How do we get to that? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Look, I'm an optimistic person in general, but there's a 0% chance Republican politicians are gonna do that. But I'm sorry, I interrupted. You were gonna tell us how, which I can't wait for this.
Well, first of all, there are some politicians who have already done that. There is a bipartisan climate solutions caucus in both Congress and the Senate to talk about climate change solutions using those words. And you can only join if you join with somebody from the other party. So it's 50-50. So believe me, those brave women and men really do exist. And what they need is they need people in their districts to support them. And so that's why each of us has such an important role to play, not in changing our light bulbs or recycling, but rather in using our voices to advocate for change at every level, not just the federal level. A lot of politics and a lot of action is local. Our city, our state, the place where we work, an organization that we're part of, using our voice to advocate for change at every table we sit on, so to speak, is the single most effective thing that we as individuals can do.
So Katharine, how is it effective? Can you tell me about, have numbers moved on this in terms of public polling? What have we done that has affected this issue?
Yes, a new poll just came out today showing that record numbers of Americans are worried about climate change now. Over 70% are worried, and over 55% agree that Americans are being harmed today by the impacts of a changing climate. So you know those numbers include Republicans as well as Democrats. I helped to co-found an organization called Science Moms that's for moms who care about climate change, because 86% of moms in this country are worried about climate change, and that includes a lot of Republican moms too. How has the world changed before? The world has changed before in very profound ways. Think of slavery, civil rights, women getting the vote, apartheid. It didn't change because the biggest slave owners were convicted to free their slaves. It didn't change because the president of the United States decided to give women the vote, just woke up one day and said, oh, I gotta let those women vote. Apartheid didn't go away because the president of South Africa decided it had to. Change started when small people with no particular power or wealth or fame, used their voices to talk about how the world can and should and must be different. They banded together. Now we know a few of their names, but who were the thousands of others who supported them? We don't know who they were today, but they were there too, using their voices. That's how the world has changed before, and it has to change again.
Right, so Katharine, you're preaching to the choir, if you will, on that one. So we love to engage our audience. We ask them to participate in politics and change all the time. We're even building a change machine. That's our topic for a different day. And so I love to do that, and it's made a giant difference. No one believed in just Democrats. Our audience helped to put 10 just Democrats in Congress. So I've seen miracles happen with my own eyes. But there's got to be a step two. Okay, you engage them, and then you have to have a realistic strategy for change. So you use South Africa as an example. I'll stay with that one. We had a lot of folks that participated both in South Africa and outside of South Africa. And then we said, we're doing an economic boycott, and we're gonna break the back of all of your businessmen who actually are the most powerful people in the country until you come to heel. Right? So that's the realistic, not so kind part of actually getting the change. And in our case, in America, our number one problem is not apartheid, our number one problem is corruption. Those Republican politicians you're talking about are almost all crooks, flat out crooks. By the way, not just Republicans, a lot of Democratic politicians are crooks. Sinema just took $1 million from people to kill climate change legislation. It's brazen, absolutely brazen, as corrupt as you can possibly imagine. So at some point, we got to take that wonderful positive energy of the people and use it to break the backs of our politicians who are completely corrupt. That's my point of view. How do you respond to that?
It makes me grateful I'm not a US citizen, to be totally honest. I'm Canadian, and we have a price on carbon. And so if you're talking about a policy mechanism that hits people in the pocketbooks, and I'm not talking about individual people, I'm talking about the 90 companies responsible for 2/3 of this entire problem. 2/3 of heat trapping gases produced since the dawn of the industrial era come from 90 companies. And it is no accident when you go to the list of the wealthiest corporations in the world, you see some very similar names. So putting a price on carbon is one thing that might be possible because it has bipartisan support in the US. And it would basically say, sure, you want to produce carbon, produce it, but you have to pay for the actual damages. So that's the type of mechanism I think you're talking about, like a step two. And there's organizations, for example, like Citizens Climate Lobby, that are all about engaging all concerned citizens to have these conversations with politicians across the political spectrum to say, here's a bipartisan solution that we need. Okay. Just as one example.
So we just solved the mystery. You're Canadian. Okay. No wonder you're evangelical and make sense and are not part of the culture wars and believe in science and are a pleasant person and optimistic. All the mysteries are solved. Okay, but now moving back. Look, on the politicians, leave that one to me. We're gonna break them. And some of it is gonna be pleasant, some of it is gonna be unpleasant. But the bribery is killing the entire planet. They just flat out give them checks, and then the politicians end any hope of climate change legislation. Corrupt Democrats, corrupt Republicans, they do it 24/7. We must break them politically, okay? But now I want to go back to your optimism because I love it. And so help me connect to conservatives better. Give me one or two, because look, here in America, they're knuckleheads. They think we're gonna ban hamburgers and planes. And so how do you reach them? How do you give one or two ways where they go, oh, okay, I get it?
Well, I would actually start by saying they're not knuckleheads. They've heard this from people they trust. So it isn't a case of intelligence or education, it's a case of tribalism. We believe people who share our values. So I participated in a project where we made 4 short videos. I made one as a Christian. We had one from a retired Air Force general. We had one from a 2-time former Republican congressman, Bob Inglis. And we had one from someone who heads a libertarian think tank. Each short video talked about why climate solutions make sense from their perspective. And then some researchers from Yale University aired them in purple markets. So they aired them in a couple of different markets where there are Republicans and Democrats, and they just put them on social media. And then they just tracked Republicans' opinions on climate change in that district. There was a significant change in their opinion when they were exposed to climate solutions messaging that began with a frame that they agreed with and they valued and they shared.
I love that. That's the correct answer. Totally. Tribalism is unfortunately correct. That is exactly what's going on. Approaching them with either a person or a message that they already agree with or are familiar with, totally agreed, and then shift the conversation. Our problem, our number one problem, Katharine, in America is that our media is, well, there's 2 problems. They're the twin towers. I talk about it on TYT all the time. One is the money, as I explained earlier, and the other is the media. So our media for forever called it 50-50. It helped the oil companies manufacture doubt. And then there's this evil corporation called Fox News, or at least a channel, and they basically work for the people who are destroying this planet. And so they lie to their audience 24/7 and poison their minds. And so but all that notwithstanding, we still have to fix it. So we've got to find a way to reach people better than Fox News does in the conservative America, because we've got to unite. Otherwise, we're never going to beat the corruption and we're never going to actually heal the planet. And you and I are both optimists, so I think we can both do it, but it does need step 1 and step 2 and 3. That's my take.
I like it, yes.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Everybody check out the book, Saving Us, A Climate Scientist's Case for Hope and Healing in a Divided World. And that hope and healing brought to you by Katharine Hayhoe. Thank you so much for joining us, appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.